Hello and welcome. As part of our leadership series, I'm sitting tonight with Peter McLaughlin, who is the Commissioner for the 4th District of Hennepin County. And I've realized recently that he should have been on years ago. He has not been on, so I'm so pleased to have you here tonight.
I'm happy to be. I'm very delighted to be here.
To chat with me and tell us more about Hennepin County and transportation. I said to Peter a minute ago that I think of him kind of in our state as Mr. Transportation, which we're taping right now on May 23rd, and you're probably feeling like it's a heavy weight right now, isn't it?
It is. It's hard to get things done, but we still keep moving forward. That's the thing. You can't quit. You can't quit.
The tensions between outstate and metro really make it
very
hard.
tough, and there are those people who think that investment in trains, in particular light rail transit, it's a bad idea. And admittedly, they're expensive, but roads are expensive too. Mm-hmm. And just on the 2 lines that we have open right now, the Hiawatha, that goes
the blue line
that goes from downtown to the Mall of America and the airport, or the green line that goes between Minneapolis and St. Paul. They're carrying, Blue Line was almost 11 million riders last year. Was it? And the Green Line was over 11 million riders. They're carrying 27% of all the riders on the Metro Transit system, just these 2 lines. Enormously successful.
I remember when the Blue Line was initiated and started, the ridership was way above what people had projected.
Still way above.
And still way above.
Way above. And now we're seeing the development that comes near the stations, the housing, the businesses, and the like. It's very exciting. Just down near Target Field Station, down near Target Field itself, the Be the Match just opened up a brand new office building. They have almost 900 people working right there. And so, they located there because they wanted to be in a place that had good transit access. That's what they wanted. And
the transit hub was one of your babies, wasn't it?
It was. It's been a great success. There was this great showing of Purple Rain after Prince died. And the place was just the way we imagined it. It was a sea of purple on that night, as you might imagine, but it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people there watching the giant screen.
So a community center as well as a transit center.
Absolutely. It was a gathering point for the community, for a ritual celebration on that night. It was just fabulous.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I want to go back and have you share some about your early life.
Sure.
You grew up you were born in Pennsylvania.
Right. In a little town, 7,000 people, Corey, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Right. My dad was a printer. He worked at the local newspaper, the daily newspaper, for about 45 years. He started when he was still in high school and worked 6 days a week because it was a daily paper, Monday through Saturday, no Sunday paper. And he would go in one night a week after supper to print the grocery ads. That was a special section of the paper. But he worked 52 hours a week. Wow. And that's how he made ends meet. My mom had worked at General Electric in Erie, Pennsylvania, where she was born. And then raised 4 kids. I was the second.
I was wondering where you were. Yeah. Quite often when I've asked leaders about their position in the sibling group, they're first or second. That seems to be a common thread.
I've heard that too. I don't know. I'm left-handed also, so people sometimes there are a lot of leaders who are left-handed.
Oh, is that? I hadn't heard that.
Right.
I know I have heard that left-handed people are often statistically intelligent, more intelligent than the average.
I don't know about more intelligent, but my first grade teacher, I remember they were trying to change me from being left-handed to being right-handed,
were they?
And we had to write on the blackboard one afternoon. I remember it was in January or February, so well into the first grade year. And I got up there and picked up the chalk with my left hand, and the nun said, "Oh, Peter, you're so stubborn, you'll never change. Go ahead, right, left hand." That was when they gave up the ghost on me. So I think I'm at least stubborn, a little bit stubborn.
And you had a Catholic grade school education?
I actually went 1 year there, and then I went to the public school.
Oh, okay. How'd you get to Minnesota?
Well, I went to undergraduate school at Princeton,
Right.
And then I worked in the mayor's office in Trenton, New Jersey, right out of undergraduate school. Did that for 3 years, and then I came out here to go to graduate school.
Oh, that was it. I know you went to Hubert Humphrey.
Right.
Or the
Right. It was
Humphrey
actually before it
Institute.
was. It was actually before it was the Humphrey Institute. Senator Humphrey was still alive then, and so it was called the School of Public Affairs at that point. But and now it's the Humphrey Institute. So I went there and got my master's degree and stayed. Got involved in affordable housing projects with Powderhorn Residence Group, and got involved, and then I got a job with the Urban Coalition in Minneapolis, and then I got involved in some political campaigns.
And then you became a state legislator
Right.
legislator
Yes.
for 4 or 5 years?
Six
Oh,
years.
6 years.
6 years
Okay.
total. Yeah, when I grew up, I never thought I'd be a politician. I never really thought about that. My mom and dad were Democrats, but they weren't really active politically, and I never sort of grew up thinking, oh wow, I want to be a politician. But I always watched the news. I remember
Your
watching the news
father's
and reading the
work would
newspapers.
help foster that interest.
Right. We had
wouldn't it?
3 newspapers. We got the Corey Evening Journal, that's where he worked, the Erie Times, and then the Cleveland Plain Dealer. So we had 3 newspapers every day in our house, and we would read through them, and that was one of the ones
really
I learned
nurture
things.
your interest in news and politics.
Right, absolutely.
Did you have a mentor? Was it one of your parents? Was it Hubert Humphrey? Who was it?
Well,
Or did you have one?
I had some great coaches. I played baseball and basketball. I had some great coaches, and one of my coaches in Little League, to age 10 to 12, he had lost both his legs at Iwo Jima. He was a Marine. He'd lost both of his legs. His hands were pretty injured, and I remember, when I first, 10 years old, I went to my first practice after getting picked by this team, the VFW. And I went to the practice, and here was my coach in a wheelchair, and I'd never been around someone in a wheelchair.
That was a surprise to
It was a surprise.
10-year-old.
It was, and you had to. I started thinking about this, but after you worked with this man, Sam Baresi, he had these big Popeye forearms. He had this big barrel chest. He'd lock the wheelchair. He'd sit at home plate, he'd hold the bat in one hand, throw the ball up with the other, and he could hit it over the fence anytime he wanted to.
Wow.
And that's how he coached us. And I still remember the steal sign was he took his hand, which was a little injured, very permanently injured, and he would run it down the rim of the wheelchair, the handhold on the wheelchair. That was the steal sign. So if you're on first base, that's what you had to watch for was the steal
What an
sign.
inspirational or
Absolutely.
Important influence.
Absolutely,
for a boy.
you taught me that this is somebody who could lead. That you had to look beyond what appeared to be shortcomings, but in fact he could teach us as well as any of the coaches, and he wanted to teach. He really taught us how to play baseball. I mean, serious teaching of how to play the game. He had a great appreciation of the game. He also wanted to win, and so we learned that from him.
Competitive.
I don't know if I got it from him, but he reinforced it. I've always been competitive. So he was a great influence, and I think it's something that was a great growth experience for me to see and be around someone that, at first glance as a 10-year-old, you might have other thoughts about just how capable this man was.
Right.
But in fact, he's been a great influence in my life.
And I can see at many levels that would be, an important person in your life.
Yeah.
In terms of politicians, who have you looked up to, admired?
Well, I was going to college during the Vietnam War, and was inspired there. I was on the East Coast, and I was inspired by both Gene McCarthy and Bobby Kennedy, and so they were always great leaders. On domestic policy, and this will, given what I said about the war, Lyndon Johnson though was a great leader. In terms of domestic policy in this country. He moved it forward, and he was a very skillful president that way.
Did you ever meet him?
Lyndon Johnson I met once. Yes, I did. And it was just, you know, I was a youngster on a visit to the White House with a youth group, and I got a chance to just shake his hand and hear him make a speech. So
I was in
I didn't get a
Boston.
picture of me with him like Bill Clinton did.
Yeah. Oh, do you have a picture of you
No,
with
I don't.
Bill?
I don't. No, no.
But Bill
With
had
Bill,
one.
I've got a picture of me with
Okay.
President Clinton. Sure, sure.
Well, thinking just a minute about Princeton, we hear so much nowadays about, you know, is it worth it to go to a really good school? Is it even important to go to college? I mean, there's some academic people are even, you know, wondering about that in terms of debt, et cetera, et cetera. Did you feel that Princeton did you well?
It's one of the great gifts in my life, to come from a small town. And my parents taught me that you needed to do well academically. And frankly, my older brother, he went to college, or he was, you know, valedictorian in his high school class, and then he went to Cornell and was first in his engineering class. But he was the model. You know, you work hard in high school, you get a scholarship so that you can afford to go, and you go to the best school that you can possibly get into. And that's what I was able to do with Princeton. And it was a great gift.
So for both of you, Cornell and Princeton, that's really amazing from one family.
Well, it was, and my younger brother went to Cornell too.
Oh,
so,
did he? Wow.
So
academics
were important. If you came home with a B on your report card, you had some explaining to do to my mother and father.
Explaining, huh?
They didn't require, they weren't trying to micromanage our careers or anything of that sort, but they did want to make sure that you did your homework, did well in school, and then you know, then go off to college and do well.
Back then, it's not so far back, but scholarships were proportionately bigger probably than they are now.
Well, at Princeton and some of the other more well-endowed schools, they actually say if you get in, that they'll provide you with the financial resources necessary. I mean, the costs are incredibly high, but there were scholarships, and I always had a job. In fact, I worked at the Firestone Library at Princeton, and I actually I registered Stalin's daughter for a library card.
Interesting. I've read some about her and her time here. Oh,
so that was kind of my brush with fame there.
Well, you've had a lot of brushes with fame. Now, as county commissioner, you and I were talking a few minutes ago about how there's a lot of misconception about what the commission does. You're on television all the time. MTN records all your meetings live. But how do you explain to someone when you're door knocking or sitting next to someone on the plane the role of the county commissioners?
Well, we have a board of 7 members. We're all elected. We each have about 170,000 people in our districts across the county. And we're almost a 7-person executive branch of the government. We make the policy, we hire the county administrator, we set the budgets, we set what the tax rates are going to be.
The budget is how many million now this
If you
year?
count the hospital, it's well over $2 billion. Our hospital is now, it's a separate operating corporation, but we still own the building. We backstop it in terms of finances. So
that was the big
yes, that was
decision,
a big decision to try to let them have a little more independence on the day-to-day operations. But we're still the final checkbook, the final decision makers when it comes to like a big policy change, or if we're going to, for example, we're now building downtown Minneapolis a new ambulatory care center where people will go for their appointments, so that they were all buried in the hospital, and it's very difficult to find your way around the hospital, which is actually
terrible.
3 or 4 different.
It's one of the worst in the country, I think.
I know. We're trying. We keep trying to make it clear, but modern medicine says you have a place to go for outpatient care. So if you're going to go see a specialist, or if you're going to go to a chiropractor, if you're going to go to see your knee doctor, there's going to be a clinic that you go to rather than going
8th, right?
Right on 8th Street. Yeah,
so right across from the main.
Right across
hospital?
from the emergency room entrance, right now.
Right.
Close to the Wells Fargo bank that's right there. So
I've always been told by some of the medical guests that we've had on the show that if you are in a crisis as an adult, get to Hennepin County Medical Center.
If you're in an accident, and you need, and you're conscious, you should. If you're
Tell
anywhere
them.
nearby, you want to go to Hennepin County Medical Center. It's the absolute best. If it's a little bit of a scary subject, but when the President of the United States comes here, the hospital that is ready for the President of the United States, if something untoward were to happen, is Hennepin County Medical Center. And they're fabulous. The doctors, nurses, the staff people, they're just absolutely fabulous, the work that they do.
What's the most challenging, the most difficult thing right now for you as a commissioner to deal with personally?
Well, and I've done a lot of work on transportation, and we keep pushing this rock up the hill, and so it's been difficult. There's opposition from some folks who just think trains are a bad idea or too expensive. But just trying to, we're responsible for children, with our child protection system or in our juvenile justice system. And I've tried to take a special interest in making sure that the children that we're taking a special role in their life, that they get a good education, that they can graduate from high school and maybe get a chance to go to college the way I did. Neither of my parents went to college. And so because we're saying that we're in their lives. We're trying to make their lives better. And in some cases, when it's a child protection case, we're saying we can do better by intervening in their life than their parents can.
Which sometimes means removing them from their home.
That's right.
Putting them in foster care.
That's right. And so what I'm saying is we have a special responsibility for the education of those children. And I
Do
want
you
to make
think
sure
most people get that? Most Hennepin County residents?
Oh, I don't think people understand what we do. They understand what the mayor does or the city does with the police department and the fire department. They do understand that, but that's the most frequently asked question by a lot when I go knocking on doors. So what does the county do? Or what does the county commissioner do? And so, we do everything from major recycling efforts to social services for little kids, senior citizens, everybody in between. We run probation services, significant. In the jail, yes. We own, and there's an operation at the Hennepin County Medical Center. Plus we have the Sheriff's Department. They provide court security and do some patrol across the county. And so it's like a conglomerate almost with these different arms that are so important. And now we are the owner and operator of all the public libraries in Hennepin County.
Right, that's a
That was a
big
long
change.
time ago, right? Not too long ago, we consolidated with Minneapolis. I mean, it's one of the things I'm proudest of.
Has that worked well, do you think?
I think for the users of the library, it has been a magnificent experience. When Minneapolis closed 3 libraries.
Right.
3 were closed down altogether, and in talking to Kit Hadley, who was then the library director, she said 2 more were going to have to close within another 2 years. And she and I were sitting having this conversation. She was briefing me on the difficulties that they were having. And I said, well, Kit, it's time to resurrect that old idea of consolidating the 2 systems.
So that was another one of your babies.
It was. I consider it. Yes, I do.
That's great, Peter. Because
and I'm so happy with what's happened. We reopened the 3 libraries that were closed. With the sales tax that we used to pay for Target Field, we then have expanded library hours across the county in Minneapolis, but in the suburbs as well, and it was enormously successful. We started with Sunday hours, but then we expanded some other days of the week. And Minneapolis Central Library, right down between Hennepin and Nicollet, it's now open 7 days a week for the first time since the Kennedy administration.
Wow, I didn't realize that. I didn't know it was open on Sunday night.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
And so I'm very proud of that. And it's one of those things. It's a great system that we had. We had 2 great systems, but Minneapolis system was faltering, and we needed to make sure that it was attached to an adequate tax base, and that you could save some resources by doing a consolidation. So we did it. It's always difficult when you do that kind of a consolidation. It's like a merger in the business world. It's difficult. The cultures were different. The union
People
structure
don't
was
like
different,
change.
right? And then I do remember the day about halfway through the consolidation process when I learned that one of the libraries was on Dewey Decimal and the other was on Library of Congress
gosh.
classification system, and I said, "Oh, come on, you got to be kidding me!" That was about a $5 million price tag to get to the ones.
It's probably good you didn't know that from the get-go. You might have been deterred.
You're absolutely
really.
right. You're absolutely right. That's the thing about change. Actually, when you try to do something, you have to have a great vision to move ahead on something, and you've got to marshal the resources, and you have to have the will to keep going. And then you have to be able to move your feet when you discover something like two different classifications.
And you have to be light on your feet, don't
Absolutely.
you, too, Dan?
Absolutely.
I've asked almost every leader I've interviewed, how do you get people behind an idea? How do you inspire people you're working with to follow as a leader? What personal traits do you think you have that have helped you in that?
Well, a couple. I think I'm a pretty good listener. That's absolutely essential, because when you're trying to get people to agree to do something, a conversion experience is not what you're going to get in most cases. What you need to do is to convince people that what you want to do is a reflection of their values, and you have to help them to understand how their values would be enhanced by doing, a consolidation or whatever the action is. So you don't ask them to give up their values and their beliefs to do what you want to do. You try to show them that what we want to do is actually consistent with their values and their aspirations. There's a lot of this that's about hope. You have to be able to give people hope for the future. Let them show that what you want to do is going to let them fulfill their aspirations for themselves or their families or their communities. When I was in the legislature, I always used to say, Main Street out in greater Minnesota is a lot like Lake Street that I represent. The world had kind of passed it by back, 20 years ago. And out on Main Street in greater Minnesota, the freeways had come along, and those businesses were struggling, those communities were struggling. And Lake Street was struggling too. And so I think that helps when people see something that's similar in their lives, that we both have the same aspirations. The problem might not take the exact same form, but it's the same aspirations and hopes for our community.
So get them on board. Everyone has been thinking and seeing that there's so much conflict, partisanship in our world right now, in our country. And do you feel it at your level with the county? Are you also finding more pushback, more we're doing it my way or we're not doing it your way than there used to be?
Well, I will say that we have been pretty self-conscious on the Hennepin County Board, in my time on the board, in trying to avoid...
Since 1991,
91, right.
Right.
We have very self-consciously tried to avoid hyper-partisanship. That's not how we solve our problems. We roll up our sleeves and figure out what's the best thing to do. The legislature used to, 15% of the bills used to be highly partisan. The tax bill, workers' compensation, maybe some public assistance bills. But it wasn't kind of across-the-board permeation with partisanship. Now it's kind of flipped. It's almost like every 85 gets partisan. There's a partisan cut to it.
But you don't see that at the
not so
county
much.
level.
I mean, there's some, you can feel it kind of creeping in, but we've been trying to keep it away. Roll up our sleeves, work together. We don't always agree, but as we like to say on the county board, same old coalition. And you got to get 4 votes to do something, and lots of times it's a different 4. It's not just a lock-in of
It's
one
not like the
group of 4.
Supreme Court right now.
Oh, sure, right. Or it's not like the legislature. The legislature has gotten a lot more partisan.
Do you ever think in terms, and I'm guessing you must, of running again for mayor, of running for governor?
I
what do you think about
I did
that?
run for mayor one time. That
Right.
was 11 years ago now. And
Was
so,
it 11 already?
Yeah, hard to
Okay,
believe,
yeah,
hard to believe.
Seems not that long ago.
And so I don't, what I really have a lot of work still to do at the county. I'm working on this transportation work. We're working on education. We have a new project. So I'm not thinking about running for another office. I've got this. Hennepin County Commissioner does a great job. We have the capacity with our tax base and our staff and our community to do wonderful things. And we're working on employment now in a way. We're going to have 40% of our employees are going to be eligible to retire in the next 5 years.
40% in Hennepin County?
Of the Hennepin County workforce. Which
Okay,
is like,
right.
it's like 7,500 people for the county, and then another 4,500 at the
population,
hospital.
et cetera. Wow, 40%?
Right. And so that's an opportunity
Yeah.
for jobs. And when you asked me before, do I still believe that a college education is a good thing? We actually have a special partnership with MCTC, but with also some of the other community colleges where we're doing, and with PPL, Project for Pride in Living, so we do outreach, we do training. They take college classes that are directly related to, and the curriculum is designed around jobs that we have at Hennepin County, like financial worker, and we create a cadre of candidates. They go through the classes at MCTC and PPL. They get credits for the classes, and then they get an internship, and we feed them into jobs at Hennepin County, which are good jobs with good wages, good benefits.
I know Joe well, but I didn't know about this partnership. Well, we are out of time.
I can't believe it.
Thank you so much,
Oh,
Peter,
thank you.
for
I was
coming
glad to be
down.
here. It was a lot of fun.
Really good to get to pick your brain and learn more about you, and
Great.
whatever you do, good luck. And
Thank you
thank
so
you
much.
for representing Hennepin County so well through the years.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being with us. I'll be back again next week. Until then, have a good week.